What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Tastes Like Music. Jason and Joe here, reviewing the new record by Arcade Fire today. This is their seventh studio album. Yeah, gonna be a slightly tricky one to talk about with everything that's going on, and has gone on with the band. I think basically after Reflector, they fell out of critical favor a little bit. Everything Now not getting great reviews. Their last record, not getting great reviews. And then immediately after its release, Win Butler was accused of sexual assaults and taking advantage of people, power dynamics, the usual uh, cancellation. They have only ended up about half canceled. Seems like a lot of fans are kind of like still listening to them and interested in what the record will sound like, but like holding it against them. And I don't know. They're still, they just were on Saturday Night Live, so they're still around. They haven't gotten the full cancellation, but yeah, people are disappointed, I think, which is fair. But trying to keep my review to what the record itself actually is. The record is called Pink Elephant, and it was produced by Daniel Lanois.
Yeah, I mean we've done Arcade Fire. We did the discography, the whole discography back in the day. So we are pretty familiar with the band. I know you and Cramser really just love them or did. And I always, I liked them, but I didn't, I was not in love with them. They didn't bring me to indie rock or anything. Like I didn't swoon over their debut Funeral like a lot of people did or or the suburbs or whatever else. My favorite is Reflector. So take what I have to say about this band and this album with a grain of salt. And I really didn't care much about We when it came out. It was one of those albums that came out, all that stuff broke, and it just kind of disappeared. And it's an album that I think people forget that it exists even. I think they were pretty much washed with everything now anyway. Like that album killed any buzz, any momentum the band had. And now with all these allegations and all this stuff, this album just feels weird to me, especially the lyrical content. Some of the song titles, Open Your Heart or Die Trying, Year of the Snake, Circle of Trust, Beyond Salvation, Ride or Die, like they all very much are trying, or at least like in insinuating maybe something that happened that maybe, I don't know, isn't what we think or isn't what was reported, at least in the eyes of the band. To me, it feels like maybe like a thruple situation gone terribly wrong or something all these lyrics and song titles make me think that like somebody betrayed them or something. I don't know. It's weird, whatever was going on with the band. And I only talk about this stuff because I think that's actually more interesting than what's on this record, which is pretty boring. I don't think it's as bad as some of the critics are saying. This album's just getting lambasted. It has a Metacritic score reserved for like Limp Bizkit. Like it's that bad. And I feel like they're piling on a little bit because I don't think they're really allowed to like this band anymore. And if you see, it has a 57 on Metacritic right now, and that is just outrageously low. Like that is the lowest of the year. It would probably be the lowest of last year, and maybe Katy Perry would have been worse. But like those things do not equate each other. This is a fine album. I think it's hurt because it's Arcade Fire, and I think people still expect more. But it is interesting the way it's produced and recorded. It's very intimate. It's very much like Win and Regine, like right up front. Everything else kind of gets diminished more than I would like, but I think that's what they're going for, really emphasizing the vocals of Win and Regine. The sound's pretty lean. There's a couple, dancier songs. It's not like all folky, woe is me kind of stuff. But um, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a fun, upbeat record. Alien Nation and Circle of Trust have like that hints of Reflector's dance floor vibes, but it's a little flatter and it's not quite as catchy, I don't think. A couple songs like Breaking Into Heaven, I don't know, it sounds a little limp to me. I wish there were more of the rest of the band. I don't even know who's left, but I could use a little more of that old school folky kind of over the top funeral arrangements where it's, big builds and big orchestration and emphasis on, the strings and everything like that. This feels a little too stripped down for my liking and a little too much leaning into whatever happened with the band and everything else, and maybe a little bit too real and not enough. Like I feel like maybe they should have gone the opposite direction and totally gone like into outer space or something. Like they really lean into it and it kind of makes me cringe a little bit and I can't really get into it because of that. Even though I don't think it's a bad record. I think the production, I think Lanois does a good job. Um, but it's just not really for me. And with everything that happened, like I'm not gonna like give it the benefit of the doubt even. I'll go 3 stars for it.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say I like the last two records. Not a ton, and I don't think they're as good as the first three, but I think Everything Now is an enjoyable record. There's some good stuff on it, and I like We even more than Everything Now. I actually a lot, it's like a light 4 stars for me. It's not like best of the decade or anything like that. Like I think some of their earlier material is, but I thought they were good. And they just got, I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened. I think somehow they became like uncool to like. They felt for a while like a band that would always be in the good graces of critics, and then I don't know. It feels like for whatever reason, critics turned on them, and so then after the accusations, they just stood no chance. This record was dead in the water before it ever came out. I also don't think that this is a bad record. I think I liked it. I'm at 3.5. I'll say that now. Kind of a light 3.5. But still, I would call it a good record. It is different and not what you'd necessarily expect from an Arcade Fire record. It very much feels like a trio of Win, Regine, and Daniel Lanois. It just feels like a side project more than it feels like an Arcade Fire record. The band is very much pushed to the back, like you said, and the songs and the way they build or don't build in a lot of cases, it's very reserved and like meditative almost in a way, and like contemplative, and it doesn't build to those anthemic choruses and those big stadium crescendos, which I understand a lot of Arcade Fire fans missing that and wanting that. But I think on its own terms, it's fine. I've also seen a lot of the criticism about the lyrics. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the titles of the songs, they use the word trust. So, I mean, people are upset about that. But, like, I think there's a lot of, like, people projecting things onto it and, like, wanting to look for meaning in things that's not necessarily there. Like, I read the lyrics a couple times to this record, and I don't see anything like I saw some critics saying that the lyrics were like super cringy and like tone deaf. It's like hard to tell what they're even talking about if you read the lyrics. I don't know that you can necessarily say they're tone deaf because you can't even really say what they're about unless you just want to assume that it's about the whole situation, which maybe it is, but also maybe it's not. And so there's that. And yeah, I think it's a little weird. Like, I don't know. It's hard to listen to and not think about everything that happened, especially because Regine is there. And like, if you don't know, are married and have been married since 2003. So through this whole thing, And there's not a whole ton of clarity about what happened or didn't happen or the whole situation. The accusations were made. It seems like the accusations were valid, although he says it was consensual. And then, not much else is said about it, and she sticks with him, so I don't know. It's I think it's purely as music, I think it's fine. I don't think, people are talking about this like it's the worst music. Like, I promise you, like 20 to 50 worse records than this came out this week. So, um, yeah, there's no way it's like a 1 star, 0 star, even 2 stars is way too harsh for what this is. In no way, shape, or form is this anywhere close to classic Arcade Fire. And it's sad in some ways what became of this band, but to say that it's terrible, I don't see it.
No, I don't think it's terrible. I do think, however, it is the nail in the coffin as far as like this band goes. Is like A is like a whole band, and B as a artist that can like really wow you and make something spectacular. Which, I'm not the biggest Arcade Fire fan in the universe, but I acknowledge their influence and impact in the 2000s. And I think we've totally passed that. I think everything now was really just like the first. I think I gave it 2.5 stars, maybe three. Um, but there just seemed to be a change there where they didn't really know what they were doing. And Win Butler to me, right around then, became sort of just, I don't know. I couldn't really get into his vocals, and he just became, I'm trying to think of the word, just insincere to me. Like I just felt he was trying so hard, and it kind of felt like a like Mumford and Sons, Lumineers, like he just completely passed the zeitgeist and was just kind of off base with what he was doing. He tried to get it back with We to mixed results. I thought it was better than um, everything now, but I think this album really just shows that they are beyond the point of no return, I think, and we'll never get like a great album from them again. Probably gonna break up, I would think, like after an album like this. Kind of reminds me of like Coldplay. Kind of like, okay, here's the leaders of the band, Chris Martin, and he's just gonna de-emphasize everything else but what he's doing and really make it about him and Gwyneth Paltrow or whatever. Conscious uncoupling. Like that's what this album felt like to me. It felt like just Win and Regine maybe breaking up with the band. I don't know, who knows, but like this feels like the end for anything Arcade Fire as far as like a legitimate powerhouse indie band.
It feels a little to me like the U2 effect, where you have like so much success with like these big anthemic songs that are full of meaning and they really connect with a huge audience. And then you get this idea that everything is supposed to be that grand and grandiose, and you try to like force that amount of meaning into everything you do, which is just impossible. And then everything just becomes kind of bloated and pompous. And I think, I don't know, maybe that's what happened with the last two records, and now this is like unsuccessfully trying to scale back, but now just kind of a little lost. Some of these songs, I think melodically are good, and some of the synth stuff is interesting, and the more textured type of recording, I think works. There's just a little something missing, and I think it's the band and like the feeling of like active participation from all of the members.
Yeah, it's tough to find that next sound. And I think they found it. I'm surprised at the trajectory of the band because I thought they found it with Reflector, kind of going with that indie-tronica sound. And then they just didn't follow that up really. I thought everything now was just like way too white bread. Like it had hints of that, but like it was way too mainstream. It felt like them trying to be like, okay, we want to be a big actual pop rock act or something. Like we want to make the Billboard Hot 100. Like we want to be, the biggest band in the world. And it kind of backfired on them. And they tried to go back to the big anthem stuff with We to mix success. And now they're trying again to find a different sound, but I don't think this is it. And I don't know. It is very hard to go back to that big anthemic sound because once you lose it, it can become really hackneyed and like lame, like really quickly. That is a tough sound to pull off for 15 years or whatever it's been, 20 years.
I don't know exactly what the way forward is for them. It's tough, especially when you're like in this like partially canceled limbo. And everyone is welcome to react to those things however they feel. I've had artists that I've loved be accused of things and it soured me on the music. I've also had artists that I listen to be accused of things and I've not really cared or been bothered by it. And I'm still able to kind of separate and appreciate the music. I think it depends like how much of a fan you are and how much meaning you're really pulling from the songs versus just like enjoying them for recreational.
Enjoy Arcade Fire recreationally.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, I truly like the first three records are I think are incredible, but they at the same time they were never a band that I like built my identity around. So not affecting me that much personally. Okay. Well, let us know what you think of this record. Do you think it's as bad as many critics and fans online do? Are you kind of like us, kind of in the middle, like it's fine, but not as good as it used to be? Or do you think it's actually great and a kind of an interesting new direction for them? Let us know in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out our posts tab on our YouTube channel, and you can vote on what we cover for next week's releases. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one.